I was wrong about Project 2025. MAGA hates Project 2025, and I thought that Donald Trump actually cared about his base because in his first term, he seemed to be swayed by his base. He seemed to listen to his base. This time around, not so much. So Russell Vought, as the head of the Office of Management and Budget, and considering what he just did with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, makes it abundantly clear to me that they are implementing Project 2025. So I will admit when I'm wrong, I was wrong.
Salutations, fellow nerds. Today is February 14, 2025, and hopefully you don't mind the little bit of a mess. I'm getting ready for a little bit of a camping trip here. It's official. Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks is one of the few people who can consider herself someone who individually helped bring about the second Trump empire in ways that his MAGA sycophants never could have imagined. This is particularly difficult for me because in 2015 and 2016, I was and still am an avid Bernie guy, and they were the place to get all the best scoops on how to feel the burn as it was. So trust me when I say that this comes from a place of objectivity mixed with a healthy dose of peer pressure. And to that end, I need to thank the Vanguard, the YouTube channel out there, for having the audacity to follow the way the Young Turks have red-pilled their audience leading up to the 2024 election. Especially this time, since they're the ones who actually got to it first, from what I can tell. So if you haven't subbed up to their channel yet, I highly suggest that you do, because they've been at the heels for the Young Turks for a while now. And if you enjoy news, history, and humorous American hogwash, drop a blue heart in the comments for me and sit a spell. I can't really express the shame and disappointment that I felt watching their turn from enthusiastic progressive voices to what they are today. And that transformation is not entirely without reason, albeit a little self-fulfilling. I tried very hard to continue watching and just hoping that they had been kind of going through a rough phase. And unfortunately, they held on to that rough phase like a pit bull. The second that the TYT felt as though the DNC had pushed out their candidate, they were really hard to see in office. They made it a point to make everything even more difficult for liberals to get a step up in an admittedly conservative country. The hatred that they felt for the DNC was palpable with every episode after the 2016 primary cycle, and it consumed their ability to strategize their own positions in a logical manner. Instead of surgical messaging and staying on a topic, they strayed from what they stood for to episodes that just entirely focused on what they wanted to speak out against. Don't get me wrong, the way that Bernie was forced out was enraging. But, as we all saw, what he did in the period thereafter, he went caucusing for the same side that he was unceremoniously deplatformed. There's a reason for that logic on his part, because he saw the dangers posed by both the Republicans and by Trump. This had much larger implications than he even was. And when Trump won, TYT remained consistent in their illogical responses. And one of the glaring things that caught my eye immediately was Cenk Uygur's decision to run for president, knowing full well that he wasn't qualified nor legally able to hold that position because he was from Istanbul, Turkey. He started his run and even ended it before Harris got into the race and before Biden chose to drop out, which means that he knew what he was doing. He knew his campaign was only going to act as a spoiler for the Democrats and progressives, and the time that he spent trying to knock them down to build himself up remained steadfast in their followers' minds throughout the cycle leading into the 2024 election. So much so that he actually got exactly what he said that he's wanted recently. After 2016, no longer did TYT stand for progressive ideals and instead turned to supporting populism and anti-establishment shit above all else. It wasn't about who would be better for the role, but who would harness the influence of populist rhetoric. During this period, a very scorned Anna Kasparian would go on to, for months, defend the very causes that she had been adamantly against prior. She had previously gone off on the Heritage Foundation and their leverage in conservative politics and even Trump's first term. Yet, when it came to Project 2025, it just came as a huge blind spot. How could the primary conservative think tank want anything to do with the upcoming conservative presidential candidate? I mean, why not instead look at the uphill struggle that Kamala Harris faced with her ad hoc last-minute candidacy and find out how many ways that she could throw a wrench into it and convince her viewers that Harris, not Trump, was going to be the biggest problem for the United States. It also stood for the second time that a woman actually had a shot at taking the helm of this country, and she, as a fellow woman, did everything within her power to hold her back. Even after her incredibly heartbreaking defeat, Kasparian launched into a tirade against Harris, even becoming the governor of California, wherein she said she would quit her job and move the state. This is all while simultaneously trying to court those within the audience of people like Glenn Beck. Regardless of losing, Anna Kasparian could not find it in herself not to act like a petulant child at the mere suggestion that Harris could fall back on even local governing. And I don't blame her for Kamala Harris's loss, but I sure don't think it would be responsible to give her a pass either. With the platform and influence of the Young Turks, I can't tell you that she convinced enough protest votes to sway the outcome of the last election. But I also can't say for certain that she and Cenk didn't both simultaneously influence enough votes for it to be outcome determinative. With over 6 million subscribers and tens to hundreds of thousands of views each week, even if we are to assume a fraction of those viewers were motivated into protest votes or not voting at all, it very well could have had a massive impact. Instead of going into 2024 with a unified progressive movement and leverage when it came to Palestine, healthcare, and education, as well as criminal justice reform and actual progressive ideals, as well as $20,000 off of a new home purchase for qualifying applicants, Anna Kasparian, who covered politics for years, just couldn't wrap her head around the premise that, one, Trump is absolutely working with the Heritage Foundation when he started staffing his team up early on with its architects, or two, that Trump was just going to somehow be more controlled by his base in his second term. If there's one thing that was learned early on and arguably well before his first term, it was how transactional Trump is. There's no movement except for him. There is no loyalty but to him. Even the most naive observers knew and were warning that there were not going to be any guardrails this time and that he would have gotten from his voters what he needed and wouldn't give a shit about them moving forward. So due to her unyielding resentment for any actual progressive positions and clearly having admitted on her Substack that she has changed and moved to the right, and her inability to see through Trump's obvious lies and the potential damage that she has caused and continues to cause for the progressive movement, I personally think that Anna Kasparian should step down from her role at TYT. I'm not suggesting that she leave TYT, but she has brought harm to this movement, and she's muddied the waters with her platform and her voice. And she helped usher in the hell that we all now experience. And what did she do to acknowledge her months-long crusade against the only real power that could have had a chance against the reality that we live in today? It was to say that she was wrong, but not sorry. And she did so behind a members-only paywall. This is cowardice and shameful, and it's harmful to the progressive movement, which now needs more competent voices in this space. If the Young Turks wish to actually succeed going forward and not be taken as some fair-weathered friend, populist, flip-flopping organization who means to only throw wrenches into any true progressive future, not only should Anna step down, but she should be replaced with more bold and unapologetically empathetic artists like Francesca Fiorentini. And from all the commentary that I have seen from progressive people, Anna Kasparian's just kind of drowned out these days anyways. She's clearly has this disdain for the work and the goals, so why are we still putting her in front of cameras? If she can prove that she has not done detrimental harm to this movement over the past few years, I would be more open to the idea that she's still relevant. But until I see otherwise, I see her as only an extra and unnecessary hurdle for the Overton window in this country. And to be quite honest, when free medical care and education is seen as too extreme, it's clear that window has already shifted only further right, and people like her have helped that happen. I would even go as far as to say that Cenk better watch his ass too, because he may have been able to also admit behind a paywall that he got things wrong, but he has yet to come to terms with the fact that he got on with Francesca Fiorentini and was like, oh, you think they're going to put us into camps? Shaking his head all dismissively, and then promised to admit if he was wrong. And maybe there's a video of that out there, but he has yet to say shit after Guantanamo Bay was opened up for immigrants. There's a very real sense of TYT coming to terms with their recent activity when it comes to their open embrace of the conservative atmosphere. They use their hate for mainstream media and the establishment and turn it into a group of Americans who just don't trust anything. They haven't built a progressive space to thrive and grow from. They created this media apparatus that is further twisting otherwise logical decision making. They're going to lose their pedestal if they continue to lose their way. Anyway, thanks for hanging in there with me, and if you dig the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Y'all come back now.
I was wrong.
You hear?